Welcome to KetoMealsAndRecipes.com. This cake is dedicated to my mom who loved both chocolate and caramels. These two delicious flavors so beautifully complement each other, and I have used them to make this cake. I hope you too will like this keto chocolate cake with caramel cream frosting as much as we do. The macronutrient ratio is 5.8 to 1 with 6.7 grams of total carbs, 0.8 grams of dietary fiber, and 0.6 grams of insoluble fiber, resulting in 5.2 grams of net carbs. After measuring and assembling all your ingredients, preheat your oven to 150 degrees Celsius or 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Line the bottom and sides of a springform pan with parchment. Next, we're going to separate the eggs into two bowls. Because it's important not to get any yolk into your whites, I use a small bowl or cup where I first divide the whites. I put the yolks directly into the second mixing bowl and pour the egg whites into the other mixing bowl. Repeat separating the eggs in this way until you have separated all 6 of your eggs. And then set the bowl of whites aside for a moment. Then lightly whisk the yolks. Add 30 grams of sweetener and whisk until the yolks are pale yellow. I started the process by using a manual whisk, but I switched to my electric hand mixer because it's much easier. And it takes about a couple to 3 minutes to get to the really nice pale yellow stage. Next, place a sieve over the bowl with the egg yolks. And into the whisk, add the almond flour, the micellar casein powder, cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, and coffee powder. Stir to pass the dry ingredients through the sieve. Use a whisk or a spatula to stir to pass the dry ingredients through the sieve. It may take a couple minutes to get all of this sifted, but this step helps to break up any clumps, especially with the almond flour. And by doing this step, it will make for a much silkier batter and more evenly distributed ingredients. So please don't omit this step. It's important for really good results. Then whisk everything in your bowl to combine well. In a cup, combine the cream and oil. Add the vanilla extract and stir well until all the ingredients are combined. Add to the egg yolk batter and with the mixer, beat well. Add your water and continue to beat until all the lumps have been removed and the batter is smooth and creamy. Don't forget to stop and scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl. Now add the white vinegar and continue whisking for about 1 minute and then set this batter aside. Next step is to whisk the egg whites to a frothy stage. Add the lemon juice and continue whisking until no egg white is left on the bottom of the bowl and everything has turned to foam. At this frothy stage, start adding the sweetener. Add about 1/4 of the total at a time, whisking between additions. After adding all the sweetener, increase the speed to high and whisk to medium stiffness stage. This is that in-between point where the peaks are still soft but are starting to hold their shape. Get your chocolate batter, stir the batter before adding the whipped whites into that bowl. Then scoop out about 1/4 of the whipped whites and add them to the chocolate batter. Combine these two ingredients very well. This will make the chocolate batter much easier to mix into the rest of the egg whites. Pour the chocolate batter into the bowl with the whipped whites. Gently fold to combine, making sure not to deflate the whites. I often like to use my large balloon whisk for part of the process because I find it does not deflate the whites as much as just using a spatula. But use either the whisk or the spatula, whichever works best for you. When you have combined all your ingredients and the color of your batter seems almost uniform, pour the batter into the lined cake pan. Run a knife through the batter to remove any air bubbles. Also gently drop the pan onto the surface of your counter a few times. After doing this step, and you notice there are lots of bubbles on the surface of the batter, run the knife through the batter one more time. Place the cake pan into the lower third position of the preheated oven and bake for 45 minutes. Without opening the door, increase the temperature to 170 degrees Celsius or 340 degrees Fahrenheit and bake for 5 more minutes. Then immediately remove the cake pan from the oven and place on a counter or cooling rack. Allow your cake to cool in the pan for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, loosen and remove the springform pan side. Also remove the parchment paper and place the cake back onto the cooling rack and let it sit at room temperature for a few hours until the cake is completely cooled. Now to make the caramel cream frosting, you will need the heavy whipping cream, mascarpone cheese, previously prepared caramel sauce that is now softened, and confectionery sweetener. Remember, if you're substituting with a different sweetener, you must adjust for the sweetness differences between various brands. Also prepare your gelatin powder and let it bloom in a 1/4 cup of water. Drizzle it slowly into the caramel cream mixture and continue whipping for a few minutes. Whip all these ingredients together until the frosting is at the stiff peak stage. Cover the bowl with cling wrap and refrigerate until you're ready to begin decorating. When your cake is properly cooled and you're ready to decorate, take about half of the cream frosting and place it into a piping bag. You can either do a 1-layer cake. An optional step is to cut the cake into 2 halves. Because I wasn't happy with the lumpiness of the top of my cake, I inverted the top layer and used the uneven top as the bottom layer or the base of my cake. I took my piping bag and began squeezing the cream frosting, starting at the center and spiraling outward. When about half of my center was done, I chose to make the small cones or dollops on the perimeter. You may remember I did this exact process on my number cake. Then I filled the rest of the centers by squeezing out the spirals. This used up about half of my total cream, and all of which I had put into my piping bag. To move my top layer without cracking it, I'm using this wide pizza spatula to support my cake as I transfer it. For the top, I'm also inverting the cake because the bottom of the cake is actually nice and flat and even. So before laying down the cake on the cream, and carefully lowered the top layer over the caramel cream. Then I placed the rest of the caramel cream into my piping bag, and this will be used for the top frosting. First I spread a thin layer of frosting over the top, stopping just short of the perimeter. I then again made the little cones, starting at the perimeter, and then working on the inner circles 1 row at a time until I reached the center. As you can see, I'm not putting the frosting on the sides of this cake. I want this cake to be like my naked vanilla sponge cake. I think this looks very nice and does not need the sides iced. The previous day when I made my caramel sauce, I also made some caramel hearts, which I will use as part of the final decoration for this cake by placing the 5 hearts in a circle as I'm showing. Then I'm adding some baby breath flowers on the outside of the hearts. Next, on the inside of the hearts, I placed 5 ripe raspberries and finished everything off with a small bunch of baby's breath in the very center. This is a very simple and elegant way to decorate your cake. Also, before I forget, refrigerate the cake for 1 hour before serving. Enjoy. Thank you for sharing your time with me. See you next time. The link for the printable recipe is available in the description below.